At the dawn of what was supposed to be a peaceful life, I, Daniel, was suddenly ripped from my homeland and taken captive to the imposing and foreign land of Babylon. My youth, meant to be filled with learning and discovery under the sun of Judah, was now overshadowed by the towering ziggurats and the whims of a king who didn't worship the God I held dear in my heart. Despite the physical chains and the daily uncertainty, my faith in God was stronger than the walls of the city that now confined me. I was thrust into a new world where wisdom and cunning were invaluable currencies, and it was with these that I had to pay my way to survival. Among the young captives, I stood out, not for my strength or skill in arms, but for the calm and determination with which I maintained my faith. We, a small group of faithful friends, faced a challenge that would deeply test our devotion. The king offered us his food and wine, meals worthy of his court but laden with practices and rituals that went against our God's laws. We refused. Instead, we chose vegetables and water, simple sustenance that honored our ritual purity and our devotion. The choice wasn't easy. Around us, others gave in to temptation, but we stood firm. And our choice did not go unnoticed by the Eternal One. As a reward for our loyalty, God blessed us not only with health that defied the logic of our modest diet but also with wisdom that made us stand out among all the wise men of Babylon. Our integrity and devotion became our shield and spear, protecting us from adversities and opening doors that only the gods could open. In this strange new world, I quickly learned that even though I was captive, my soul was free. And it was this freedom that allowed me not just to survive but to thrive under the gaze of kings and rulers, under the invisible yet omnipresent protection of the God of Israel. It was faith that defined me, and it would guide me through all the challenges that were still to come. One night, as the city of Babylon surrendered to the silence of the stars, a storm brewed in the heart of King Nebuchadnezzar. A disturbing dream invaded his sleep, a riddle that none of his wise men and diviners could solve. The court was in turmoil, and the king's wrath threatened to consume even his most loyal servants. I, a mere captive among the wise men of Babylon, found myself facing a challenge that could mean either our destruction or our salvation. In his despair, the king decreed that all the wise men be killed if the mystery of the dream was not revealed and interpreted. The news of this dreadful order struck me like a blow, awakening me to the gravity of the moment. That night, as silence fell over the sleeping city, I knelt down in prayer, seeking God's face, pleading for mercy and wisdom. During a vision, as if the curtains between heaven and earth were briefly drawn back, the interpretation of the dream was revealed to me, clear as the day breaks through darkness. With my heart pounding and the weight of so many lives on my shoulders, I was brought before the king. He looked at me with a mix of hope and severity, like a man on the edge of a cliff. "Daniel, can you tell me what I saw in my dream and what it means?" His voice echoed off the palace walls, filled with fear and anticipation. I stood before him not just as an interpreter, but as a messenger of a far greater kingdom. "O king, no wise man, enchanter, or magician can explain to the king the mystery he has asked about," I began, my voice steady with strength not my own, "but there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries." And then, with each word guided by divine force, I revealed the king's dream and its interpretation, speaking of a great statue and kingdoms that would rise and fall, symbols of power and human frailty. Nebuchadnezzar listened, his face shifting from disbelief to awe, until finally, the fear that had marked his expression gave way to reverent respect. He prostrated before me, recognizing not my wisdom, but that of the God I served. "Truly, your God is the God of gods, the Lord of kings, a revealer of mysteries, for you were able to reveal this secret." Thus, not only were my life and my friends' lives spared, but our place at court was secured. More importantly, the greatness of the God of Israel was proclaimed in a pagan kingdom, signaling that even in exile, under the rule of earthly kings, the reign of the Most High remained unshakable. After the mystery of the dream was revealed, Nebuchadnezzar's admiration for a God who could interpret the unfathomable knew no bounds. That morning, as the court still buzzed about the event, the king called me before everyone. The air was thick with expectation, every gaze was fixed on me, curious and calculating. But as those eyes assessed me, my focus was upward, silently thanking not just for preserving my life but for elevating my mission. "Daniel," the king began, his voice carrying the weight that only the powerful possess, "not only did you reveal the mystery of my dream, but you have also shown to possess a wisdom and a spirit superior to anyone else in my kingdom." With a gesture, he motioned for me to come closer. "For this, I appoint you governor over the entire province of Babylon and chief of all the wise men of my kingdom." The weight of those words could have been overwhelming. Governor of Babylon, a position that placed me among the most powerful in the kingdom, a captive rising to the peak of political authority. Yet, with each title and each praise the king uttered about me, I knew in my heart that it was not by my own strength or wisdom that I had reached such a position. It was God at work, using me as an instrument of His will. I accepted the appointment with deep reverence, not for the king, but for God, whose unseen presence seemed to fill the throne room. "O King," I said, my voice steady though my heart was humble, "it is by the will of the God of heaven that I received the wisdom to interpret your dream. And it is in His name that I accept this honor, with the promise to seek justice, truth, and prosperity for the people of this great city." As I rose, I felt the weight not just of a governor's crown, but of the mantle of responsibility that now enveloped me. Each step I took among the courtiers was guided by a silent prayer, asking for wisdom to govern, strength to remain upright, and the grace to reflect the light of a God who can make rivers flow in the desert. That was a day of celebration in Babylon, but for me, it was a time for deep reflection. As I solidified my influence and respect, I knew that every decision I made, every word I spoke, must echo God's justice and mercy. For although I was surrounded by riches and power, my true reign was a faithful service to a kingdom that could never be shaken. Years had passed since my position in Babylon was cemented, not just as governor, but as a man of God in a land of many gods. Days unfolded with their own worries and triumphs, but one night, I was awakened not by a divine vision, but by the urgency of hurried footsteps approaching my door. Nebuchadnezzar, the great king, was again troubled by a dream. Unlike before, this dream carried a dark omen that even the night could not hide. When I presented myself before him, I found a man changed, not by age, but by the restlessness consuming him. "Daniel, I need you again," the king said, his voice trembling with a fear not typical of a sovereign. I dreamed something terrible, and I'm afraid it might be a sign of doom. As always, I placed my trust in the God who reveals mysteries. In prayer, I sought the interpretation, and as always, it was granted, though its content weighed on my heart with a heaviness I was reluctant to share. The dream was a divine warning, a vivid portrayal of what would happen if Nebuchadnezzar did not abandon his pride. At dawn, I returned to the king's presence, and with all the solemnity the moment required, I revealed, "O king, the dream you had is a warning. Its content shows that if you do not change your ways and humble your heart before God, you will be removed from the company of men. You will live among the beasts, and eat grass like the oxen. This period of madness will last until you recognize that the Most High has dominion over the realm of men and grants it to whom He wishes." The silence that followed was almost palpable. Nebuchadnezzar looked at me, anguish and understanding warring to take over his imperial features. My words were not just the interpretation of a dream, but a direct appeal to his soul. "My king," I continued, my voice firm yet filled with genuine compassion, "I urge you to break away from your sins by acting justly and showing mercy to the poor. Perhaps then, your prosperity may be extended." Advising a king is not for the faint of heart, and discussing weaknesses with a man accustomed to nothing but praise requires a courage that can only come from above. But at that moment, my loyalty was twofold, to my God, the source of all wisdom, and to my king, whom I served in the hope that he might see the light that shines not only upon thrones and palaces but also deep within a human heart willing to submit to true sovereignty. The warning had been given, but the words, though they carried divine truth, seemed to scatter like seeds in the wind before Nebuchadnezzar's pride. The king, though initially shaken by the revelation of the dream, did not change his ways. Thus, the heavens acted to fulfill the word delivered through my humble interpretation. A year had passed since that warning, and then it happened. On a clear day, as the king walked through his high palace, praising himself for the grandeur of Babylon, his creation, his majesty, the heavens responded. A voice thundered, so real and so powerful that the very air seemed to tremble. "O Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is said, the kingdom has departed from you." At that moment, the transformation began. The great Nebuchadnezzar, the emperor of vast territories and architect of wonders, was reduced to a shadow of himself. His understanding left him, his human form was obscured under the cloak of madness. And as predicted, he was expelled from human company, living among the field beasts, eating grass like an ox under the dew of heaven. His appearance became wild, and his hair grew like eagle's feathers, his nails like the claws of a bird. During this time, my position at court remained unchanged, but my heart was heavy. The fall of Nebuchadnezzar was not a cause for celebration, but a time of deep sadness and reflection. Day after day, I maintained my faith, praying for his restoration, knowing that God's power and mercy could reach even the most fallen of kings. Finally, the day arrived. At the end of the designated period, I saw the change not just in the horizon, but in the very spirit of Nebuchadnezzar. When he lifted his eyes to the heavens, his reason was restored. And with it, a new understanding. I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and exalt and glorify the King of heaven, for all his works are true and his ways just, and he is able to humble those who walk in pride. Thus, he was restored to his kingdom, and he emerged greater after his ordeal. The entire court, having witnessed his downfall and redemption, could not deny the hand of God in these events. The faith I had maintained and shared became the faith of many, strengthened by the undeniable evidence that even a king is not beyond divine transformation. Nebuchadnezzar's restoration not only lifted a man but elevated the recognition of God's sovereignty, whose mercy and power are infinite. As the years passed and kingdoms changed, my position in Babylon remained, now under King Darius's watch. Although my heart continued to serve with the wisdom God granted me, not everyone viewed my presence favorably. Envy is a flame that burns unseen, consuming the hearts of those who surrender to it. Thus, among the officials and satraps of the realm, a sinister plan was devised to bring about my downfall. These men, driven by envy, knew they would find no fault or corruption in me, for my life was guided by the integrity that only faith in God can sustain. Their scheme, then, had to target precisely what defined me, my unwavering devotion to the God of Israel. With flattering words and cunning arguments, they persuaded Darius to establish a law that, for 30 days, would prohibit any petition to any god or man other than the king himself. The penalty for disobeying this decree was to be thrown into the lion's den. Upon learning of this new law, my heart was saddened, not out of fear, but because of the clear choice that lay before me. In the quiet of my dwelling, before the open window facing Jerusalem, I knelt and prayed, as I always had, 3 times a day, giving thanks to God. Not out of defiance, but out of fidelity, for I could not place any earthly king above the Eternal One. As expected, I was found praying and, under the letter of the law, dragged before Darius. The king, realizing the deception he had been led into, struggled until sunset to save me, but the law of the Medes and Persians did not allow for revocation. With a heavy heart, Darius ordered that I be thrown into the lion's den, murmuring, "Your God, whom you serve continually, he will deliver you." A stone was placed over the entrance of the den, sealing both my fate and the king's hope for a miracle. The night in the lion's den was a veil between 2 worlds, where death prowled, but the peace of God reigned. By divine grace, the lions did not touch me, their roars turned to whispers, and their fearsome presences into guardians of the night that passed. At dawn, Darius hurried to the den and cried out anxiously, looking for any sign of life. "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you continually serve, been able to deliver you from the lions?" And my voice, filled with gratitude and relief, answered, "O King, live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the lions' mouths, and they have not harmed me, for I was found innocent before him, and also before you, O King, I have done no wrong." Darius ordered them to lift me out of the den, and in the face of such an undeniable miracle, his heart was transformed. He not only ordered the punishment of those who conspired against me, but he also decreed that throughout his kingdom, people should fear and tremble before the God of Daniel, proclaiming his sovereignty and his saving power. Thus, the faith that sustained me in the darkness of the lion's den became a testament to the light that no earthly kingdom can overshadow. Throughout my service under various kings, from Nebuchadnezzar to Darius, my life was marked not only by land management and dream interpretation but also by deeper revelations, visions granted by divine grace, glimpses of the future woven by the very weaver of time. These visions, often intense and enigmatic, came to me in the silent hours of the night, painting panoramas of kingdoms that would rise and fall, like waves in a vast ocean governed by the hand of God. On one such night, as the city of Babylon lay at rest, I was transported in spirit to see a great statue made of various metals, each representing a kingdom of this world. The statue, imposing and terrifying, was destroyed by a stone not cut by human hands, which became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. This stone symbolized the kingdom of God, eternal and indestructible, which would be established after the end of earthly kingdoms. Another vision revealed 4 great beasts, emerging from a stormy sea, each more terrifying and powerful than the last, symbolizing kings and kingdoms with growing powers and terrible dominion. But amidst this vision of tyranny and power, I was shown an Ancient of Days, whose garment was white as snow and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was like flames of fire, and its wheels were burning fire. A river of fire flowed before him. Thousands upon thousands served him. It was then revealed that the dominion, glory, and kingdom would be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all rulers will serve and obey him. These visions, though filled with mysterious symbols and frightening images, brought a message of hope and redemption, the promise that despite the appearance of power and permanence of earthly kingdoms, the true power rests with God, and it is He who establishes and removes kings. He who sees the end from the beginning and whose plans for the redemption of mankind are firm and unchangeable. Thus, as I recorded these visions, I understood that they were not just for me or for those of my time. They were a legacy for future generations, a testament to God's sovereignty over history and the promises of a future where justice would prevail over tyranny, and peace would replace conflict. With each word I documented, my heart grew fuller with reverence and admiration, not just for the God who reveals mysteries, but for the God who, above all, seeks to restore and redeem His people. Time, like a river, flows on its course, indifferent to the lives it touches and the kingdoms it dissolves along its banks. I witnessed the great Babylon, proud and powerful, fall and be replaced by the Persian Empire. Over the years, my hair turned white, my skin wrinkled, but my faith, that burning flame within me, remained as alive and vibrant as when I was a youth facing the wrath of Nebuchadnezzar. Under the Persian Empire, I continued to serve in the government, now an elder among younger men, many of whom had not witnessed the miracles and trials of my early days. Yet, the respect I commanded was not due to my longevity, but to the integrity that always guided my actions and the wisdom I held, for its true source was divine. Kings came and went, but my service remained constant. Cyrus, the great Persian king, saw in me not just a useful counselor but a link to the divine, a window to eternal truth in a world ever-changing. My counsel was sought not just for managing the kingdom, but more deeply, to understand the ebb and flow of divine providence over peoples and nations. And so, I continued my path, walking with the certainty that each step taken in faith not only strengthened my own soul but also wove the fabric of history according to God's designs. And as I aged, I found a new strength, not of the body, but of the spirit, a testament that true strength comes from the Lord. Those who observed my life, both friends and foes, saw something rare in me, a consistency of character that neither time nor circumstances could erode. This consistency became my last and perhaps most important legacy. For while earthly kingdoms may change at the whim of conquest and defeat, fidelity to God is the true marker of a man, the real measure of his life. In my final days, I reflected on the visions and the trials, on the kings and the kingdoms. And even in the shadow of death, that long companion, my soul rejoiced, for I knew that each day lived in God's presence was a day gained for eternity. And so, with a heart full of years and gratitude, I kept my gaze not on what I left behind but on what lay ahead, the promise of a kingdom that would never end, ruled by the King of Kings, where every tear would be wiped away and where faith would finally be seen face to face. Reflecting on my life, woven with the threads of fate and divine providence, I realized that every moment of faith, every decision made with integrity, was not just a step in my own journey but also a stone in the foundation of the legacy I would leave for future generations. From the days of my youth, when I was torn from my homeland and taken to the grand and fearsome Babylon, to the days under Persian rule, my life was a continual test of faith and conviction. In every challenge, from refusing the king's delicacies to the moments when I faced death in the lion's den, God's hand was with me, guiding and protecting me in ways that only a heart full of faith could understand. This same faith, which sustained me through moments of loneliness and danger, became the light others saw shining in me. It wasn't a light that sought to glorify its bearer, but rather to reflect the glory of the one who is worthy of all praise. And this light didn't dim as the years passed, it grew, nourished by constant communion with God and adherence to His laws and precepts. My dedication to God, even amidst an empire that worshipped gods of stone and silver, showed that true strength doesn't lie in titles or earthly power, but in the stillness and certainty of faith. This faith not only saved me physically but also brought spiritual salvation to many who witnessed the consistency of my character and the depth of my devotion. My legacy, therefore, is an invitation to all who hear my story, not just to admire the works of a man whom God chose to use, but to seek that same relationship with the Creator who transforms hearts and destinies. It's a testament that, even in the most challenging circumstances, integrity and dedication to God can not only bring influence but also pave the way for true salvation. Thus, as the days pass and I near the end of my earthly journey, my greatest wish is that my life continues to inspire others to seek God with a sincere heart and unwavering faith. May every act of faith be a seed planted in fertile soil, growing to become an eternal testimony of the grace and redeeming power of the Most High. At the end of this journey, as the last rays of the sun bid farewell to the horizon of my life, I contemplate the eternal truths that guided every step, every decision, every moment of challenge and triumph. The story of my life is, at its core, not a story of a man but of the sovereignty of God, His infinite power and mercy, and how He faithfully reveals Himself to those who trust in Him. I grew up in a world where kingdoms rose and fell at the whim of human ambitions, where kings and rulers saw themselves as gods among men. Yet, throughout every episode of my existence, from youth to old age, it was evident that there is only one true King, sovereign over all nations, all creations, whose kingdom is unshakable and eternal. Through the visions granted to me, the trials I faced, I learned the profound importance of humility. For it was in humility that I found strength to resist the temptations of power and pride that often topple even the mightiest. And through repentance, I saw great kings, like Nebuchadnezzar, transform from tyrants into testimonies of redeeming grace. Every lion that roared in the den, every mysterious dream revealed, every conspiracy uncovered, were not just mere events in a long life but clear affirmations that God defends and protects His faithful. He not only preserves life but shapes character, purifies intentions, and prepares His servants for a dwelling not made with human hands, but eternal in the heavens. So, as my time with you dwindles like the shadows at dusk, I leave you not with tales of a wise man, but with an invitation to know and trust in the God I have served. He who can turn adversity into lessons and suffering into symphonies, promises all who persevere in faith not just protection through life's storms, but the assurance of an eternal future by His side. May my story serve as a beacon for those navigating the sometimes turbulent waters of existence. May every word recorded, every act of faith remembered, strengthen in your hearts the certainty that serving God with integrity and dedication is the most glorious path, filled with peace and promises that only He, the King of Kings, can truly fulfill. If you enjoyed this video and want more exciting and inspiring content like this, Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. That way, you'll be the first to know when we post new videos, full of stories, teachings, and insights that enlighten and enrich. Join our community and be part of this incredible journey through the most fascinating stories from the Bible and beyond. Subscribe now and transform the way you see and live your faith.